Hey, welcome back everybody to my podcast. And today's guest is Anton Gavel, who currently is the new head coach of Ratiopharm Ulm at the BBL and Eurocup level. Anton and me, we talked a lot about his time in Slovakia and him coming to Germany early as a 16-year-old without knowing any German, starting his career off in Germany, about his time in Spain as well as in Greece. The struggles as a player, the challenges as a new young head coach at the Pro B level, lots of philosophy questions, communication questions, assistant coach expectations, the usual things. And now it's just a different perspective from a player that won a lot of championships in Bamberg and Munich. And now he's going to share his experiences with his players as a coach. Anton strikes me as a very down-to-earth head coach. I believe he'll have a great career just because he's egoless and he has a very good way of expressing himself. So please listen into this podcast. It's very useful for all the new up-and-coming coaches that are becoming head coaches early on at a young age. Become a subscriber, become a Patreon, and also subscribe not only to YouTube channel, but also to all the audio platforms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and all the other goodies. So listen in and stay tuned for more. All right, talk soon. All right, Anton, welcome to the big show, my podcast.
Thank you.
We've interacted infrequently at some junior tournaments, and now I wanted to congratulate you on becoming the head coach of Ratiopharm Ulm. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for that.
But before we dive into the teeth of the defense and we get deep into it, I have a listener question already. I had to ask around a little bit. How come a Slovakian-born player is a diehard HSV fan?
I know exactly where that's coming from. Well, Arne Volkmann, he was my coach in Bamberg, and he is a huge HSV fan. And I know it hurt him badly when they moved to the second division. So hopefully they stay there. So I can tease him all the time. So for that reason, I always say that I have to be a St Pauli fan.
St Pauli, okay, all right. Have you been to St Pauli games?
No, I've never been. I've never been to the game. I've never been to Milan tour, so I can't tell anything about the atmosphere. I've only been in a couple of stadiums in Germany to watch some games, but never been to neither Hamburg or St Pauli.
I would love to go to St Pauli game. That seems like a must do on the soccer games to-do list.
Definitely, and I think also Union Berlin now in their first division. I think that atmosphere is also great there. So the little stadiums, I think that they have a little flair that the big stadium doesn't have.
Yeah. So let's dive into a little bit into the basketball part. But before we go through your player experience, your coaching experience, just to give the listeners and the viewers a little bit of a background, how come you were born in Slovakia, you started your playing in Slovakia, but how did you move? When did you move to Germany? It's also for me just of interest because I'm not very much familiar with the start of your career.
Yeah, well, I started basketball basically when I was 11. My father became a coach from the very youth team, so like a fifth grade, something like that. And I used to join the practices when I was in a second grade, something like that. And I kind of got into it, and it was fun. Both parents played basketball, which is kind of unusual, but back then, because I was born in Czechoslovakia, back then in Czechoslovakia, basketball was pretty big. I mean, we had a couple of medals from European championships, and we had a couple of big names in European basketball before that when we were two countries together. So basketball was pretty big back then, and I mean, it's still kind of in women, but and of course Czech Republic right now with men's basketball is growing up. But in Slovakia, basketball is definitely not a very, let's say it's not even one or number two sport in our country. But I kind of got into it pretty early, and because of my parents, I dove into the basketball and I stayed.
Oh, but you moved. When did you move to Germany? Like,
Yeah,
what was the moving point?
Yeah, 2001. When I was 16, I moved to Germany. I received an offer from Karlsruhe, from the second division in Germany. Back then, it was South and North. There was Dr. Ivan Vojtko, a Slovak coach back then, wanted to give a chance to one young player, and I said, "Let's do it." I mean, I knew that, in Slovakia, there's not a lot of chance to get higher, or let's say to get better. So I said, I have to do the move, and I didn't care if it's a second division, third division, fourth division, whatever, just to go somewhere else abroad and tried my luck there.
How did you like Karlsruhe? Because I played against Karlsruhe as a coach, but that was already Pro A. You know, when they were like North and South brought together. And I think Dr. Ivan Vojtko was still there the first year we played them, because he was there for a while. But how did you enjoy Karlsruhe?
Well, first of all, it was a huge difference because I had to go there and go right away into the school. So I thought, okay, you learn some languages, like foreign languages in the school, but that was the first, I don't want to say shock, but I didn't understand anything. I thought I have a couple of grammar stuff, and I will be able to introduce myself and have a conversation. But to be honest, jump right into the school was a huge difference, and it was tough. But basketball wise, Dr. Vojtko was still kind of like back then the Soviet Union coach, and we were before every practice. I mean, before every single practice, we were on the outside running, track and field. Every single time before we went to the gym, every single time we were running outside. And like I said, in the last 3 years, we were probably the best team with the best condition. But we were in the end, we were runners.
Yeah, that sounds like my father too. We were, all preparation was running outside, and we didn't run outside during the mornings during the season, but it's very much Eastern European, Soviet Union, Yugoslavian, like all this. The Eastern Bloc was very much like that.
Yeah, that's right.
From your time, like now you said you were 16 when you came. Is there something you can take away from that time that you could advise now? As later we're going to talk about the Orange Academy, but you can advise kids coming over to Ulm to like the adaptation period. Is there something you remember struggling, but besides the language part?
Yes, I mean, back then you didn't have that possibilities to communicate with your parents, with your friends. I mean, back then we had just a phone, no internet or anything like that. So right now, I think this part could be easier. I think the best thing for me was try to dive into that culture, like be open. I know it's sometimes tough because you don't know the language, but don't be shy to talk to the people. Try to know them, and especially when I was in the school, and some of the guys who come in here also to Orange Academy, they go into the school. I think it's important to not just to know the language, but be open to the people and to your friends, and try to make friends, and also not just basketball wise, but do stuff with them. Go to eat, go to cinema with them, and make some friends. I think it makes the world and the life a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids, I mean, there's like naturally some kids that are introverted that just shy away from that. But I think it's very important breaking through that barrier and like not being afraid to make a mistake in a language that you're learning right now, and not being afraid to put yourself out there, making yourself vulnerable. That creates a good bond between your teammates as well, you know, just to be a part of something.
You said it. Make yourself vulnerable is, I think, something that also makes you, for the other people, makes it like a feel more warm. Just they're gonna like you right away. I know if you just try to be introvert, a lot of people cannot change themselves. I mean, this is your character, but sometimes you have to be proactive and not just expect all the time people are coming to you and try to invite you somewhere. Sometimes you have to just make the first step. And we had last year somebody from France who kind of had these difficulties to get into that. And I think we try to talk to him that he also has to make a little step towards the people who are in Germany, because they're going to make it 1-2 times, maybe 3 times, but later on, sometimes they're just not gonna do it anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Like you have to appreciate if somebody's coming up to you and inviting you to a dinner or to something, like you can't shy away from that. You have to be open to those opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about your playing time before we go into the coaching parts, and like you've listened to my podcast, I assume, already, to several. So I have different perspectives, and I gather different perspectives just to have a broad view on the experiences of players and coaches, but you have a very vast experience in Germany, especially with Bamberg. All the titles putting aside, may they rest in peace. I say that to everybody. You know, it's this podcast is not about as much about the titles, more about the essence of how to get to the titles or what you drew from it. But especially in the Bamberg times, what do you remember that you like learned from Coach Fleming during that period that is gonna help you today or in your preparation to become a head coach right now? That's something that sticks with you, that stuck with you throughout your whole career in Bamberg, that's until now you remember.
Well, first thing, what I really liked about Coach Fleming was not just him; it was like the whole coaching staff. Like he never put himself on a certain kind of step or ahead or above the other coaches. They all did it together. I think there was something that I took from right away, that it's a team. Also their coaching staff is like a team sport, and they had it like a little family. You know, the family hang out together, and they always communicated the stuff or decisions together. So there was something that for me right now as a coach, let's say, this is something that I would definitely like to go that path, and I really liked how they were doing the stuff. And as a player, I mean, I came there in a situation when I remember that the first time, my first practice was a paintball lesson. I mean, they lost 5 in a row. I came there, they were 2-6. The whole, you know, I don't want to say chemistry, but the mood was down. And my first practice session was a paintball. So, and I didn't know, maybe I know 2 or 3 guys, but I didn't really know the team. And I had to go and shoot the guys basically on the paintball session. So it was kind of weird, but in the other side, that kind of broke the barriers. And from there on, we went to like a 6-7 game winning streak. And you know, they always try to make no, I don't want to say adjustments, but if the things were not going our way, we went away from basketball and just try to either go to dinner or make some like I said, like a paintball session or something that didn't really have to do anything with the basketball, to kind of you know, just make the players feel loose. So yeah, there was something that I really liked.
Did Coach Fleming do a lot of those kind of team bonding sessions in different aspects besides paintball? Anything else?
I mean, we've done those in the preseasons, or sometimes with Bamberg, we did a couple of times where before the playoffs, we went to like a 3-4 days completely away. I mean, in the beginning, I kind of didn't like it. I was like, oh, we're gonna lose the focus. We're not gonna be ready for the playoffs. If we go to somewhere to Malaga, I think we went one time to Malaga, and second time to Mallorca, I guess. But after the first time, I really thought that kind of brought us even more stronger together. I thought we're going to lose the focus, but it was completely opposite. They knew what we were doing, and we maybe practice in those 4 or 5 days, maybe 3 times. Like, there was not really about the basketball. What we were doing was a beach volleyball, or we were go swimming, or they had something prepared for us. So it was like that focus that everybody was, okay, now we have to go through the playoffs, and now it's going to be tough, and we're the favorites. And then suddenly he took that pressure from us, and it helped a lot.
That's in good old German, it's called Tapetenwechsel.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to change a little bit of scenery and get your mind away from it, because I know, like, once you get back into the playoff, into the gym, and it's just going to be nothing but that. So I'm sure this kind of, but you also need to support, like, everybody needs to be on board with it. The whole club needs to be on board with that, because some inexperienced clubs may not have may not be cognizant about the importance of, like, just changing the scenery a little bit for players, how important it is. Because all the time you're going home, gym, maybe you go to the weight room is maybe sometimes in a gym, sometimes somewhere else. So just to change the dynamics a little bit, I think is very important, especially in a long season like these days.
Right. But he was also on the board with the players. Like, you know, I mean, you know, Casey Jacobson, he was like one of the for me, the captain. I mean, really one of the best guys outside of, not just on the court, but also outside of the court. He always asked him about his opinion. And if he wouldn't be on the board, then of course we probably wouldn't do it. But he knew that it can help us. And those characters we had throughout those 4 or 5 years in Bamberg, I mean, he kept them always accountable. And he always introduced, like, first time I got there, he invited me to the dinner and explained me how the situations in Bamberg are going. And he did it with not just with me, but with everybody who came, and kind of like explaining the culture or the way we were doing the things in Bamberg, which was not difficult because Bamberg is so small city. So usually you always, you know, run into somebody on a restaurant or daily basis.
Yeah, it's a college town.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Very small but cozy. I call it cozy town.
There, it is.
So from your, like, while you were playing, you also experienced different, not only the assistant coaches in Bamberg, but in other countries as well, in Spain and in Greece. Like, what does a good assistant look like to you? Like, what are the things that you expect from a good assistant to support as to the player?
Well, I think they're almost on the same page. I mean, of course, the head coach got to take the decisions, and I don't want to say take the blame, but he has the last word. But I think the assistant coach always have to sometimes, I don't want to say question the coach, but also make him think the different directions sometimes, like or kind of like challenge him. But on the other side, I think the assistant coaches right now, the bond between the head coaches and assistant coaches, at least what I experienced, was always that good. That it was beside basketball. There was always, like, even, I don't want to say spending family times with them, but they were also hanging around in the free time, or their families or something like that. So this is something that the connection, I don't even know the word now, but the connection between the coach and the head and assistant coaches, I think it's a strong one. And then it also, the whole team kind of feels it when they're on the same page. So I don't want to go into the details what they have to do, like what their task in the practice, or everybody's is the different one, has the different, let's say, expertise, or somebody takes care of defense, somebody takes care of offense. But I think, like, the bond between the coaches, this is something that for me also makes the assistant coach.
So, like, it has to be a cohesive unit. Like like they all have to feel like they're on the same page, obviously, and the players, it reflects onto the players for sure.
I mean, when you're on the court, of course, you got to be on the same page. And there's a video or something like that. But if you're in a room and you're talking about different stuff, the game preparation, or if you're asking for plays or something like that, I think they have to also give the head coach a challenge. Like, so you have to think about it. Okay, maybe he's right, or this is something that definitely going to help us. Of course, when you go in front of the unit, in front of the team, that you guys are on the same page every single time. But like, if you are preparing everything and most of the time you guys spending in an office or somewhere else, then they also kind of like challenge you with questions and with ideas.
Yeah, I don't think a yes man as an assistant is very useful. So yeah, like, at least, like, behind back doors, you have to be able to argue and professionally, like, make your point and give some counterattacks to the coach, just like said, like, challenge him. In front of a team, it's something else, obviously, but like, you have to be cognizant of the authority of the head coach. But when you look at it from a player perspective, how did you see the relationship between the player and the assistant coach? What were the things you expected for them to help you with during the games and during practices? Like, what are the things you're looking for in the questions you ask your assistant coaches?
Well, I think at least from my experience, the assistant coaches, they had their guys. Like, those guys, for example, I don't know, assistant coach 1 was responsible for those 3 guys. Assistant coach B was responsible for another 3-4 guys. So of course, when there's something in a game they see, or if something is wrong, those guys was also talking to the players. So I think this was something that at least I experienced, and it worked very well. So they had also the parts of the team were kind of like divided, and you had a certain kind of like overlook over those certain guys you took care also in the practices, because most of the time you were also practicing with them. So I had, you had Stefan Weissenboeck on your podcast. He was responsible kind of for me, and we had a bond that is, we are just great friends right now. But he was also taking care of me when things that were going wrong in a game or in practices. So we talked, and for example, Chris was not going to me, but he sent Stefan, and he kind of talked to me, and it got into the better. So I think, the assistant coaches, they are like, I don't want to say the mommies sometimes, but they have to listen to those cries or blames or whatever, and they have to then also reflect and know what they're going to keep for themselves, or what they're going to say to the coach, how we can change stuff. So I think the good assistant coach, they listen, and they can digest what information needs to go where. So this is something what I also experienced, especially in the Bamberg team, where it worked really well.
Filter, yeah. Like I always like the assistant coaches have to be really good filters. I mean, like I was always cognizant of the relationship with the player, of how like you're naturally going to spend a lot of time together. You can go, I think it's normal and natural to go for some breakfast, for some lunch or whatever, just to talk and just to have a create a bond. But you also have to be cognizant of what the coach needs to hear, what he doesn't need to hear. And you also, like, the player trusts you with some things of that the coach shouldn't hear, you know?
Exactly.
And you, like, I think assistant coaches have to be aware of not falling into the trap of that. But now talking about Stefan, because I wrote that down as well. On my podcast, Stefan said something that you and him were going at it, like during games, sometimes you were arguing, you were going hard at it. What were the most common things you were arguing with him about during games? Because it seemed like it was a very emotional relationship at that point, but it's also a very healthy emotional relationship. It was like,
it was like this. I mean, with him, he basically, I don't want to say like the Bamberg time, he made the step I made in Bamberg. Like, it was because of him. I really have to say that like this. He always, like, you know him and you know what he's doing when he's doing individual workout. But it started that I kind of thought he was new there, and I kind of thought I'm gonna be cocky and start talking stupid to him, and then we got into the fight pretty fast, like in maybe second, third session. But we talked right away, and I think the relationship that I started, or they're long, or until now, I started on kind of like a wrong note, and I think this was exactly with him. And then, of course, every single time I missed a shot, missed a free throw, whatever, it was he needed to hear the blame. So he just saw me, and I was cursing, and we were cursing in our language, and then we were going back and forth, and I was blaming him for missing the shots. But in the end, we always knew that there was some kind of respect, and we were working daily, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes after bed, sometimes after good games, and he was always there. Like, this is the first thing you have to tell. He was always there, and he always trying to help. So, but it started like this. Really, the second or third practice, I started talking some smack to him, and he was talking back, and he never really backed down. So we were both like a hot heads, and yeah, until now we're really talking daily, I would say.
Stefan never struck me as a hothead, but I'm sure he has this emotional part too. But so he was tinkering with your shot a little bit, and you got frustrated. Is that how I interpret it?
Yes, we tried to change something in the practices. For example, we tweaked something with a shot, or we tried something new, and then we, of course, tried it in the games, and it didn't work. And then, of course, the first shot I missed, or first free throw I missed, I was looking right away on the sideline and give him the look, or start cursing. So, he had to listen to a lot of those stuff. But in the end, it worked out. I mean, I have to say, in the end, it really worked out.
Can I ask you, what did you tinker with? What did he adjust? Like, is there a certain, like, just to go into detail a little bit?
Well, the thing was, I was trying to always put the ball, when I was shooting, I tried to put the ball away until my waist sometimes. So he was there holding the stick, so I couldn't really move, or he put like the whole basket box in front of me, so I don't really have to, or I couldn't move my ball below my waist. Or sometimes I will hit my head while I was shooting, so we had to put like a head or stuff like that. So I couldn't really. There was also Torsten when he tried to do it. Torsten was also a guest on your podcast when he tried to. Didn't touch my head, so I was wearing a regular baseball cap, so I couldn't really hit my head while I was shooting. This was kind of some tweaks that we were doing to the shot.
Interesting. So you're just trying to eliminate the dip at first, just so you don't dip too low, and then keep it in front.
Exactly. And we tried also the energy, because I tried to really, like, there was so much, let's say, I don't want to say energy, but also power into the shot. So he kind of tried to use the energy, so the ball flows a little easier.
Yeah. Interesting. Energy. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to put a light on here, because the energy is coming out here as well. So from your playing career, what do you remember? Like, what would you do different if you go on through all this and you reflect on your career? Is there something you would have done different throughout your playing career?
Well, a lot of people say they would just let it like this. I think the first time when I left Germany, there was Gießen. I think that was 2000. What was it? 2007. and I went to ACB for 2 years to Murcia. I think that came kind of too early. I think I was not ready back then going to that kind of competition. I mean, back then it was crazy. I think in my 2 years in Murcia, we won only 3 away games. So everything else was just try to protect the home court and try to steal some games. And we had people like Goran Dragic on our team. We were 2 rookie young guys, and I think this kind of came a little too early. But in the end, you never know how the situation is going to go. And ACB back then was from 1 to 18. It was just ruthless. Like every game was a brutal battle. And my first year, I remember we saved ourselves in the last game against Valladolid. So maybe that step could come let's say a little later.
Because after, like, you went to Aris, right? And then you went to
exactly, yeah. And
you
then
went
to Bamberg.
But you had a short stopover back in Slovakia, right?
Yeah, but it was because after the Aris thing, I was waiting for a job or for offer to come, and then I was just kind of preparing myself. So there was a really quick stint. I think only 2 games back home in Slovakia, and then the Bamberg offer came up.
Yeah, because November I saw you moved then to Bamberg, and then you played there. Okay, like just from the mental aspect, like during your career, but also during like the season, game by game, like if there was, like you said, there was arguments with the coaches, like generally speaking, some failures, right? Like you have some failures, some bad games, some bad stretches, slumps. How did you overcome bad or failures in general? What did you retreat to? What did you do?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it was always I tried to go right back into the gym and just try to work even harder. This was in the beginning, and it kind of worked, especially in, let's say, Bamberg time or before. I just wanted to outwork everybody, and this is not just a quote like everybody's saying, because back then there was no social media or anything like that, and I didn't want to post it or anything. I just wanted to be in a gym and just try to outwork everybody. And if I was not making the shots, then I would stay into the gym until I make those shots. Later in a career, especially in Bayern Munich, when it was going towards end of my career, then I was trying different stuff. Maybe just relax. Don't go do the extra work. Go the opposite way. Just try to figure out what works the best. Try to work with the athletic coaches. If I said, I thought my legs were not ready or something like that, I try to maybe way too late go a little more towards the details, because I was kind of stubborn and just try to go through the wall. And if it's not working, then there is no other chance. So in the end of the career, I try to go to the opposite way. Yeah, but most of the time it was just head down and go through every single wall.
It's hard when you're used to going in the gym. It feels counterintuitive to not do it, right? Like it feels wrong.
I felt bad. I was like really I had to really tell myself, okay, just don't worry. We'll try it this way. We're going for a week. Hopefully it works. And if not, then we'll go back to our routine.
Yeah. I always felt like, for me, like always being in the gym, shooting, like you can feel something is off, the slump, like you shooting it normally, but it just feels off. Then sometimes it felt better just to not to stay in the gym for 2-3 days and just get out of it. Then you come back and you just like, it feels like you got a second wind, after a while. Like it just like going away sometimes helps. So sometimes less is more. And I think the older you get, the more you understand it. Early on, it's impossible to understand.
Exactly. It was tough. Yeah, exactly.
So retirement, and by 2018 was when retirement was approaching for you. What was the transition like? Did you feel like that you struggled with some identity loss in the beginning? Was there anything that you prepared yourself for the next stage? How did you handle retirement, like the approach of it?
Well, I knew that there was something that I'm missing, and it was not condition wise, or it was not the physical side of the play while I finished. I think it was just I couldn't kind of handle it, that I couldn't do the stuff that I was able to do before, and there was more like a mental stuff. And I think I had enough on that, and I could finish the career on a winning the double, basically the cup and the championship. And that was the first time I was also as a captain of the team. So that was something for me personally, something special. But the transition to that, to be honest, it was kind of relief in the beginning. The first months, definitely relief. I also, after a career, my daughter was born, so there was a lot of stuff to do. that kind of kept me outside of it. And which was kind of funny, I got right away into the co-commentating job, the EuroLeague games of Bayern. So I kind of still was involved, and I stayed with Bayern and was doing a little bit with the youth, and with Emilio right now as assistant coach, as individual coach. So I kind of kept involved, but I was relieved. And to be honest, for me, it was not a problem to not play. It was just, I like to still watch the game, and it was kind of weird maybe not to see the guys and have the daily routine to go into the locker room and to the practices and a little more time. But for me as a player, I was not missing.
You didn't know that you were going to coach right away, right? It sounds like you were just letting it approach and kind of like eased out of it, and then just see, like, let the game come to you basically.
Right. I mean, Bayern kind of let me, just be around the young kids and just look around. They were thinking about going to the individual direction, like the development coaching stuff and that. And Emilio came that year, Emilio Kovacic, and I learned a lot from him, and we were doing stuff together. So I was still involved somehow, but I didn't really have those responsibilities. Plus I was doing the commentating stuff. So I was there in the gym or around, but not as much, not traveling or anything like that. So it was good to figure it out and just kind of like feel into it and look around what's going to be the next step.
I want to get back a little bit to the captain part, because you said like the first time you were a captain and you wanted, like, you were appointed captain right away from the beginning of the season?
Yes.
What was your approach with that? Like, I'm sure that feels like there's like not a heaviness, but it's certainly a responsibility that you felt. How did you take advice from somebody, or did you just go into it with your experience?
I mean, like I said, Casey Jacobsen in Bamberg was one of the captains that I always gonna remember, and the stuff that he was doing and approaching the guys, not just on the court. And it was the first time that I didn't try to copy anybody or just try to be just try to tell those stuff. The worst thing for me was that I knew that I'm not the player that I was before, and I still had to have speeches and talk about it. So I didn't want to go and to tell anybody, hey, let's do this, because I was doing that back then. I just try to keep the team together and give him some kind of speeches I was thinking about that could motivate him before the game. But overall, the team was functioning well, so I didn't really have so much stuff to do. Plus, we could finish on a good note. We won two cups. We won the cup, the championship, and unfortunately lost to the semifinals in Eurocup. But okay, it was a good last season and good experience for me, being, let's say, a captain.
Yeah, that I'm sure that's the one of, like, I mean, you were still relatively young, 34, right? But it's a really good way of going out. I mean, you can't ask for much more. So becoming a head coach, but first of all, becoming a head coach at the Orange Academy. Let's talk a little bit about that. So when you took that role at the Orange Academy in Ulm, what was your first approach to coaching juniors? And do you think that, I'm sure you had a further goal to become a professional head coach at the professional level, but do you think it's essential for former players to take like Spanulis was doing also last year, to coach juniors, to have experience, to have some hands-on experience with younger talent, and then going into professionals? Or is that something that is very individually varies?
Well, I have to go back a little bit to the players, and I very like the stories. Like, if you go from somewhere and you develop, or you make those steps and you make it right to the top. So for me, this was something going from the second division to first division, to go through, let's say, Spain to EuroLeague. I always had my goal to get to the EuroLeague. Like, as a player, that was my goal, to get to the EuroLeague. I had a chance to play 6 years EuroLeague, and I like the story. In the end, when I, in retrospect, look at the career, it was kind of like always moving up, and the story behind it was something Kyle Heinz is also a great example for that. So this is something what I also like, that the chance came into the Pro B, which is third division in Germany. So I didn't get the chance or step into right in the first division, because I would be overwhelmed, and it's completely a different story. So I like that everything started on that level. Of course, I didn't expect that the steps gonna go that fast, but this is something that I like, because still I have to be honest to you, I still lived the first couple of months, or basically when I got the job from that my name, especially in Germany, still meant something. So the people I was coaching knew me a little bit, at least from watching me before. So that helped me to get, let's say, the respect automatically. But I had to learn. So first steps was I was trying to calling coaches and grab as much information about how to prepare the preseason, how to do this, how to do that, and then try to mix it together and make some kind of the idea how we would like to do it. Plus, my assistant coach back then also helped me a lot because he knew the league, he knew the players we're going to play against, and also the team. So that was very, very helpful. And this is why I went back to the players. I kind of like the story. So it will be great when it goes somewhere. It doesn't matter where it goes, we will see. But it started on the Pro B, and hopefully, it can make always one step ahead.
Yeah, it's like the foundation is very important, right? Like you have to also find yourself as a coach, your own identity, and figure out like really, which with every team it works a little bit differently. But early on, I think in a coach's career, head coach's career, to find your own identity as a coach is very important, and you form it by trying things out. What did you find yourself asking yourself the most throughout the first season, coaching in a Pro B? Like, what were the questions that constantly came up?
First, it was I had a respect for because of the task to be the coach, first of all. So I think this is the next time I'm right now, when I know what's going to come in a couple of weeks, I still have a respect, but I kind of looking forward to it. But the first year, the questions I had, I mean, of course, in the beginning was like how to not put the team together, but how to put the preseason together. How are we going to start? How are we going to work? How are we going to use the strength coach? How are we going to do this? How I want to the duties to the assistant coaches and stuff like that. Plus, of course, the team. I didn't know them. I didn't know the league. I don't know how the opponent's going to be looking like. So, and plus with the Pro B, you're going to have a lot of those double license guys. So that means they're going to play for or practice with the first team and get their chances there, and mostly play for us. So this was also something that I wanted to look, okay, what Jaka Lakovic is going to do with the first team, so we can make it easier for those guys coming up and down all the time, defensively and offensively. So I was looking in his practices and look how we can make it work, but also in the end put some of my stuff that I thought was good for the players we had back then.
But like looking at in the big picture, and you think obviously you don't know what other ex-players that go into coaching struggle with, but what do you anticipate usually for ex-players to struggle with the most when they start coaching?
I think the first is to put the ego aside, maybe. I think I always try to tell them that I had my time, and it's never going to be about me, and it's just everything about you players. And if the things are going wrong, I will take responsibility for it. But if you guys win, it's because you guys done it. So this is something that I always try to, I don't want to say preach is the word, but I try to let them know. And the other thing is, of course, the coaching is completely, I think, the daily work. It's as a player, you come to practice, you finish, you stay hanging around, and then you go home. But as a coach, I mean, this is nothing new. This is not a physics or anything. You have to prepare. If something is going wrong, somebody, especially on that level, sometimes the guys doesn't show up, or they miss the bus or something like that. So you have to change the practice on the right away. You have 12 players, suddenly you have 11. So all the 3-on-3, 4-on-4 shell drills you have prepared. So you have to kind of like also be ready for whatever happens. And then in the games, of course, when first games and the close games are there, and you're like, okay, now it might come to the last play. What you gonna draw? How are you gonna talk to them? And this is something that the first seasons the first season was very interesting in that kind of perspective.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like. It's like you prepare yourself like for the situation of which words to pick, to choose to get your point across, and in what tone, and how do you like you everything. Your head is constantly working. That's the best part about this job, because you always have to be on your toes. And like I was at this camp in Turkey right now, coaching young kids, and for me it was the first experience of that magnitude, because it was 2 sessions in the morning, and each session in the morning had 2 practices of 40 minutes each. So it was basically 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. But for each session, for each practice, you had a different group. And the groups ranged from 10-year-olds all the way to 18-year-olds. And you have like, you prepare a practice, I prepare 4 different practices, and you're trying to build it up into like, you know, like a 4-on-4 session, or 4-on-3 versus a +1 and things like that. And after like the second session, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to like just free ball and see which group I'm gonna get. And the 12-year-olds, they're not gonna, the 12-year-olds are not gonna run pick and roll and then just do, you know, like preparation drill and stuff like that. So it's, I can imagine with the double license players that some guys fall out, and all of a sudden you have like an odd number of 7 players maybe in the gym, or nine players. You just, okay, let's do 3-on-3-on-3 or whatever, you know, with 9 players. Then you have to improvise. So that also teaches you a lot as a coach, and kind of like keeps you on your toes again, not mentally, but mentally sharp as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it were challenges, but the organization is the first thing, especially on that level. What you have to manage somehow. You know, different gyms, different players, double license guys. You don't have them until the last day of the weekend. Then suddenly you have 16, 17 guys. How you gonna try to involve everybody? So there are not a lot of guys standing around, and just you're gonna give them feeling, okay, those are the 12 guys, and the other 5 are not important. So this is the youth, and I liked it, and I think that gave me a lot. And of course, it gave me a lot. Let's say it like that.
Let's move in a little bit into now, like the head coach part in Ulm, like now preparation. Like when you found out in the summer that you will replace Jaka Lakovic, first of all, did you watch a lot of his practices throughout the season there, the last seasons, and what were the things that you can take from him that when he ran the teams?
I mean, Jaka did a great job. So first of all, I mean, I watched, especially in the first years, I watched a lot of practices with him, and learned from. He had a lot of stuff that either Kokoškov stuff, like the stuff from Slovenian national team and or Barcelona, or he played for Željko. So he had a lot of those situations, or let's say these things that he learned when he was a player. So there were a lot of things that he had to also go through, because, for example, in the first year he came here as a new head coach and didn't really have any of his assistant coaches. So there were 2 new guys, and it's also a situation where you have to first adapt. Plus, he had a young Killian Hayes point guard who had to kind of, that there's going to be always somebody looking from NBA, and so I think the first thing that he was kind of holding the pressure for him was something that I really was looking for, and how he was handling the different characters and different egos. And throughout the 3 years, he had a different guys, and then also the pressure. The first year, I think they had a 8 games losing streak, and him as a first time coach somewhere, how he handled that pressure. So this is the first thing that I looked at him, and I think he's done a tremendous job with that. And of course, they always were competing until either semifinals or quarterfinals. So he put that stuff that I, for example, never seen. Offensively, that flow motion and a lot of ball, a lot of handoffs and everybody involved. This is something that I really liked of what he brought to the table offensively.
Yeah, I think like you're in a really good place in terms of developing coaches as well, because like Ulm is known to develop players but also coaches. And like you said, the first year of Jaka, like the losing streak, I think a lot of coaches, a lot of managements would have folded, like they would have felt the pressure to it. And Torsten talked about it as well. I think he had also one time a season that was not great, it's a very poised franchise and does not like press the panic button really too quickly, but they trust in the development, and they monitor the process very well, I think. So I think that you're in a really good place also to grow as a coach, and for your future's sake, it's a good development place.
I mean, you have to think about it. When Jaka and me first arrived, we were both kind of rookies. I think Jaka had 1 or 2 games where he had in Bilbao when he was a head coach, when he replaced, but I didn't have no experience in that. He didn't really have that experience. He was assistant coach, of course, more than I had. But I don't want to say they took a risk, or the organization took a risk, but they saw something, let's say, in both of us, and they were not afraid to go that direction. Also with the players, like giving Jaka the Killian Hayes as a starting point guard. It's always I don't want to say to go that risk, because that would be, I think the word will be too harsh, but it's also having the trust into something they think that can work. It might go a completely different direction, but like Torsten said, he had those streaks, and Thomas Stoll was still holding to him.
Yeah, that's really hats off to the organization for sure. So what was the first phone call after you received the phone call? What was the first phone call afterwards?
Of course, I mean, my family, I talked to my family and talked about it first, and I talked to my parents about it. And I think the first moment was nervous, like, oh my God, like, okay, that what's going to happen? How do you want to do it? I was thinking all the plays I'm going to run, and there was like so many information immediately right away. But then I was like, look, it's still like 3 months left. It's all easy. It's going to be, I still have time. And now I'm thinking it getting towards closer and closer now towards the preseason. And I'm like, okay, now I don't really have that much time. So I hope we're going to be ready. We have the team ready, and everything's going to be set up. So, but the first phone calls was definitely him and my family, and then parents back home.
So talking about family a little bit before we talk about the philosophy part, but how do you plan? I mean, you already planned and balanced family as a player, as a coach in the Pro B, but now as a head coach in the BBL and Euro Cup, right? Like Euro Cup is going to be the competition. So how do you plan to balance the family and professional life aspect? Because the coach's aspect, that's probably the most critical balance of it all.
Yes, of course. I mean, my wife Elena, she's the backbone of the family, so she's gonna hold it together. And of course, she supported me in that decision. So this huge tip that I had to her, because I mean, she would have to hold the kids and everybody accountable, and run the family. So like I said, she's the backbone, and it's a huge thanks to her. But I heard that a lot of coaches, they either gonna get divorced or they are by themselves. But I don't want to. This is the most important for me, the family. So we're gonna get through that, and we're gonna be all right. But it's gonna be situations where it's gonna be rough. I understand we're gonna miss. Or we're going to be in a road and going for a couple of days or maybe a week. But to know that you have somebody that you can rely on at home, and everything, that everything's going well, gives you the more relaxed situation. And it was like this when I was still playing, when I started the career. And I know Pro B was not a lot of traveling, but now it's going to be a little bit similar to the situation when I was a player. So she knows how it goes. And the kids are older and a little bit, they understand also the situation. So I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, thanks for opening up about that. And I like it's family is a huge part of our lives. I don't have a family myself, but I can imagine, I can sense, because I already put a lot of responsibility, and I feel responsible, and I hold myself accountable for everything, and then it feels like if there's somebody else behind you who is putting more pressure on you while you're not there, it's a compounding effect, and at some point it explodes. That's why the coaches divorce rate is unfortunately very high. But I think that if you have already experienced, like you went through a whole playing career, you have already this synergy between the lifestyles that gives you a lot of like a backbone for your whole private life, and then it lets you work freely as well. There's nothing worse, I think, than having double compounding pressure at home and at the job, no matter what profession, actually.
That's right. I mean, it's always a roller coaster. It doesn't matter what kind of job you have. It's always at home. It's a roller coaster, but you have good times, you go through tough times. But in the end, I mean, we're now for over 10 years now together. So she knows how the kind of like the basketball life is going, and it's not easy. And that's what I'm saying. Like she's the backbone of the whole family foundation. So we can rely on her kids, me, and of course it's going to be tougher on her now. I understand, but I know that she can handle it, and we're going to try to support her as good as we can. All
right, let's talk about your head coaching duties. You're your vision and philosophy as a rookie head coach coming into a new season. Go.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think, like I said, like we started the conversation about the Bamberg times. I think Tyrone McCoy is the one who I'm also going to rely a lot on. I mean, he's been in that situations. I mean, he's been a head coach in Tübingen, in Artland, and he knows the game, he knows the players, he knows the league. So there's going to be, again, stuff that we're going to do together, first of all. So I want to talk to him about it before I'm going to try to do my my decisions and my stuff. So it's going to be his voice and also his decisions that we're going to take, or we're going to go through that. But yeah, I mean, our team is not complete yet, so it's not really that we are already saying this is the way we're going to play. Personally, when I looked at either NBA or EuroLeague teams, the defensive teams are always, especially I think if I looked at it right, NBA teams, the first 4 teams were in the semifinals in the defensive rating. So I think this is something that you cannot really forget. I mean, defense really. Everybody says the offense now wins and you can shoot the threes and everything, but defensively we want to be there. We want to be ready. This is something that we would like to rely on. And of course, try to protect the ball and assist over turnover would be something that also is not a team that brings you to the promised land. But hey, this is just this is something that we wish for, but the reality might be a little different.
Yeah, you're right. The top 2 defensive teams, one of them here, were in the finals. So it's definitely defense. Defense goes a long way, and people forget that even though Golden State shoots the lights out, they also play defense at a high level. But how do you see yourself, like the relationship going to in a relationship with the players as a head coach? Like where do you feel you're going to be different, or how are you gonna have that relationship building factor throughout the season? You're going to be close, you're going to be distant. How do you see yourself?
This is something that I would like to know their opinion, like the players' opinion, and it's not just my way or highway. It's just I would like to what I would like to do, and I try to do it in a younger level, is talk with the guys after the practice, not with everyone after the practice. Sometimes somebody is in a bad mood or had a bad practice, but sometimes to talk to them after the practices or before practices and kind of get their mindset, because in the end they are the ones who are on the floor and they see how the whole situation is going. And I also doesn't really want to look always over the shoulder, looking for every single play, every single call. I want them to go and make their decisions. Of course, it cannot be anarchy and just do whatever you want. But in the end, I don't want to put them. There's got to be some kind of system, or I don't want to say rules. I don't like to call the rules, but
framework.
The framework, and then you can basically do whatever you want freely in that kind of framework. We just give you a path, but you can still find a decision inside of this path.
Yeah, I like that, because like Coach Lemanis, the last podcast, which actually is really, really good podcast. I encourage everybody to listen to it who wants to be a coach or who is a coach, because of the natural way of how he explained it. But he also talked about the natural player involvement, and then naturally the question arises, are the inmates running the asylum? He said it that way. So is who runs that prison, basically. But if you have a good relationship, if you are authentic, and if you are who you are, and the players recognize, and they're going to respect the rules, obviously. But I feel like always to give the players some responsibility is important, because when they feel like they have some input, they will also apply themselves 100%, instead of when it's forced on them and they have to do it. And it's not, maybe some certain plays, for example, certain free flow offenses, sometimes it's not natural to some players. So they just going to fight it, and they're not going to accept it. So I think that finding the right flow in the offense with the lineups, with the players that like to certain plays, certain ways of moving around, it's very important to project onto the players, and to figure out as a coach as quickly as possible what works and what doesn't work. There's nothing worse of going the wrong path and then realizing it's too late.
I mean, this is everything I would wish for. But those coaches you had on your podcast, I mean, they experienced, they're winning coaches. They won a lot. They had that experience. I'm just getting into it, so that's why I said it again. The Tyrone, the impact of Tyrone is going to be huge, and this is something where I definitely had also a lot of stuff that to learn from him. So this is something I want to learn from that. I want to learn. Yeah, everybody says learn every day, but it's right that you want to get something out of everything.
For sure. And I had it written down also. What the communication process was. I love communication once again. But what was the communication process with Tyrone during the summer? Like, what was the expectation? Like you said, he's gonna have a big input. He's gonna help you. But like during, how often do you talk? What are the main topics you guys talk about? Go ahead.
Well, we thought. I mean, I approached him first of all. Of course, if he wants to get into it, and if he if he can feel comfortable in that situation. And the second thing was that I want to also him to have a, let's say, bigger impact. So the voice going to be heard, not only my voice in the practice, but I want him to be a huge part of it. And this is something that we were talking about. Not that much of the players or the way we want to play, just how the whole situation's gotta go and how we're gonna handle it. So I think we will figure it out once the whole preseason's gonna start, and he's gonna give. I definitely need the input, and I want the input from him, and then we're gonna go basically hand in hand. It should be our thing, not my team, but it's gonna be our team. And that's how we're going to also present it to to everybody. So this is something that I learned from the coaches I had, and I really like that when this is about the team also beside the team.
Mm-hmm. Number one question that I always ask myself for players and coaches, and like scouting report is a big topic on every coach, especially now with the crazy schedule. Playing into competitions, travels, how much preparation do you plan on putting into opponents, whether instead of focusing more on your own development? And like, okay, let's talk about that first. Like, how much do you plan on focusing on player reports for the opponents?
Okay, so I can only tell from what I've done now, which is completely different. I get it, the level is different and everything. We were really focusing more on ourselves. That means we started, let's say, of course, we were doing some drills where the people or the players didn't know that we were doing already from the opponent, but we were not really starting the whole week and talking about, okay, we from Monday on, this is how we're going to start practicing, this is how we're going to defend. And now with that schedule, it's impossible to do it. And I kind of would like to focus more on us than on the opponent. Of course, you cannot go naked to the game and don't know what's going to happen. And adjustments are, of course, very important. But I think we really would like to focus more on us than on opponent. This is something that at least I think could help, and we'll see if it goes the right direction.
I think early on in the season, it's more about yourself anyway. I think that you have to find your own identity as a team as fast as possible, and that doesn't happen in preseason usually. Like, if it happens sometimes even only in February, March. It takes time to find yourself. And like you said, there's been losing streaks in Ulm as well, where it took a while to find yourself. But then once you're clicking, once you find yourself and you go into the teeth of the season and into the nut cut time, like they say, then you can start preparing also more. Obviously, like you said, you don't go naked until you prepare the opponents, but then the closer you get to the more important games, the more preparation you put in. And then obviously, like the playoffs come, hopefully that's when the preparation comes, because you're who you are, who the players are, the roles are clear, and then you adjust according to the opponents, like how do you defend certain actions. I think that's the progression.
You're right. I think a good word. I mean, you've been around Boston for a while, so you guys clicked whenever it was when you started the winning streak, and then you guys were winning or beating the opponents by 20 points or something like that. And it just came from, I don't know, better. I just from outside looking, it came out of nowhere, and it really kept, and then you guys were just going better and better and better. And I think Kyle Heise was talking about it one time about when they had that dinner in Moscow when he was playing there. So those are the situations you never know when they're going to come and when they're going to appear. Definitely not going to happen in preseason. And if you start winning in the preseason and you're 6-0, 7-0, everybody's happy, but this is not your right face. So yeah, that's right. You never know when the right team's going to show up, and hopefully it's going to show up throughout the season, because not all the time it happens. But we will be happy that it happens. Let's say somewhere around January, February.
Yeah, it's most random things happen like that, right? Like sometimes, like in our case, it was also a trade. Sometimes there was also an adjustment of putting Rob away from the guarding pick and roll, but more on the help side. Then you make certain adjustments that all of a sudden it works excellent with the team that you have, and then it's a roller coaster, and it works automatically for each team differently. So there's not one recipe. So some teams it's a dinner, like.
I mean, of course, like if there would be a recipe, everybody would win. So yeah. This is we'll see.
Exactly. So one more thing about the scout reports. Is there something that because you strike me as somebody that's really into preparation as a player when you were as a player, but you probably observed and read the scouting reports. You can see probably that you were probably also watching the video. Really, back then it was probably also a lot of emphasis on that. But do you have a way of doing it maybe different, like your player vision versus your coach's vision on scouting reports? Is there something that you would do different from what you saw as a player?
I mean, okay, so every player is going to take the scouting report differently. I mean, I wanted to know as much information as possible. So I wanted to know the plays, the players who I'm going to guard.
You as a player or you as a coach?
Yeah, as a player. I wanted to know it like this. I know a couple of guys, they didn't want to know anything about it, or let's say just a little bit, or they read it before the game and then it's done. So everybody's going to take the scouting report differently. So you can just give them something, and everybody's going to pick whatever is best for them. That's always say, like, this is what we give you, pick what is best for you. Like, for example, on the players, max for me is 3 offensive, 3 defensive stuff done. And then for whatever plays, I mean, we're going to walk through some, or we're going to go live some stuff, but we're going to give you more. And then we always tell you, like, okay, if this is important for you, just look at it, pick however you want to guard it, but we're just going to go through certain stuff live, and we're going to highlight it, but not so much stuff, because most of the teams, I mean, they're running so much stuff that it's difficult even to remember or to concentrate on that stuff. So I think the player is going to pick whatever is important for them, and that's what we try to tell them, like, pick what is important for you. But there's going to be certain rules, or certain, let's say, most important or most run plays. This is how we want to defend it, this is how we want to do it. But in the end, that's why I would like to focus more on us than on opponent.
Yeah, you provide them with the necessary information, and then let them, as grown adults, choose the right information for them, the information load that they can handle. It's also with Messina, it was also that once you have your rules in place as a team, it's more or less clear, and the play calls of the opponent are not even as important. I mean, the assistant coaches should know. They're sure they should be able to warn their players and tell them what's coming, but the players should know the rules on how to defend certain actions. And if there's a special play or a Spain pick and roll with a weird angle or something else, then there's special rules. Special plays require special rules. Other than that, you should have your philosophy in place in terms of defensive rules and schemes and stuff like that. I think that, because Messina also always said the players need to play. They cannot overthink it. They cannot, like, now I have to do this and that, and then you do this and the opponent reads it and does something else. Like, the players have to not overthink and not overload their brain. They have to just play.
I mean, if Messina says it, then he knows what he's talking about.
For sure he does. You ready for some ATOs?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna throw some at you. As a player, your biggest sliding door moment?
What do you mean sliding door moment?
where things could have turned out completely different?
Yeah, I think it was after the Greece experience, and I didn't have a job, and I had one offer from Greece I didn't take, and I think if I would take that, probably the whole Bamberg situation, and the EuroLeague wouldn't probably go that way. So I think this was something that that was the right decision.
Saying no sometimes is good too.
Yes.
Biggest epiphany you had as a player when you felt like this is next level basketball? Is there where you elevated and you were like it opened up a different stratosphere for you?
Yes, the first preseason game in Spain against Valencia, and Vule Avdalovic was my opponent, and I remember that there was I even kind of had a good game, but this was like Dejan Milojevic, who is now the assistant coach for Warriors. He was also playing for the team, and I remember there was wherever Jim was, I don't care where, but it was just like, okay, well, this is different. This is a different level. I think this was the one when I experienced that.
Eye-opening, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
I had a similar experience when I saw the first live ACB game. It was like it felt different. It felt like the atmosphere.
About that we can go. Like we played back then Tau, or now Baskonia, and we played at home. And the first quarter was 16-16 and 16 points of Scola, Luis Scola back then with Prigioni, Scola, Splitter, Teletovic, all those guys. It was just unbelievable. We were playing at home at 16-16 at the first quarter, and all points Luis Scola. It was just every day you were playing against somebody. It was just like the whole season was Navarro. You can name them all. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, ACB is special. Always has been. Biggest advice from your player self to your coaching self?
Be patient, but I don't know. I would say that, be patient, but I'm really bad at it. I don't know if I'm still, but hopefully I can get better.
Yeah, I think not many. I'm not. I struggle with patience too sometimes. Sometimes it really varies. It's situational. It's very situational. Best. That's a Tim Ferriss question. Best worthwhile personal investment that you did?
Creating. I don't know if I can say creating my family was the one, but this is something that creates a foundation where I can always come back and rely on. So I would say the family is something that I would never get for granted.
That's valid. That's a good personal investment. Something personal about you that you wouldn't be able to find on Google.
I really don't know, like on that.
St Pauli fan, but besides
no. I don't know. I mean, you're not gonna find. I'm a huge ice hockey fan. This is something that I always wanted to be an ice hockey player, and now NHL draft #1 and #2 are from my country, from Slovakia. So this is like a huge success for our country. So let's keep it that. It's very simple, nothing special.
Big time. Yeah. I do have a pod map on my personal homepage, so I will put you on Slovakia if it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I've never had anybody from Slovakia, so for which city should I tag? Košice?
No, you can say Poprad, Poprad. This is where I'm living. I was born in Košice, but I spent most of my life there.
Poprad. Yeah. Okay. Last question. What's, as an ex-player from transition, and we talked a little bit about it, was it more difficult to create a new identity, or was it more harder to let go of the old one as a player? Like like you had a relatively easy way out where you said you took a time and you didn't really let the game come to you. So I'm always wondering, and I didn't anticipate your answer during the podcast, but was there something that you felt like it was more difficult to let go of your basketball career, or more difficult to create a new one after the basketball career?
I think to create a new one, I think the let go was easy and kind of refreshing, I would say. But I create a new one, and I really didn't take it for granted. Just so I wanted to do everything perfect on a Pro B level. So if I think about now, how it's gonna be in a BBL and Eurocup, I mean, it's it's gonna be created a little bit new one. So it's gonna be difficult, and it's definitely more difficult than just let the old one go.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Anton, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you opening up about your career, about your plans, about your philosophy, and we're looking forward to see you on the sideline, and looking forward to seeing some wins in Ulm. And I'll be there. I'll be on the Orange campus too.
Thank you very much, Benas, and I hope you bring in some great guests like you've done until now. So really, I'm looking forward to new podcasts, and keep doing the great job.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for being on here as well. You're both. You're a listener and you're a contributor now.
That's right.
Thanks everybody for listening, and see you soon. Bye.